Hey everybody, Tim Albrecht here, and thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of YFP Planning's fee-only certified financial planners. Before we jump into today's question, I want to give a shout out to YFP Planning's incredible team that makes this segment possible. YFP Planning offers fee-only, high-touch, comprehensive financial planning that is customized to the pharmacy professional. You can learn more and book a free discovery call by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com. Okay, this week's question comes from Alex in the YFP Facebook group, and he asks, "Hey everyone, new grad here, currently completing a residency program. I'm trying to figure out my loan repayment situation, and I need some help. I'm wanting to do an income-based repayment program, but I want to make sure that all my loans and payments qualify for PSLF. I currently have 3 different loans: direct unsubsidized, direct subsidized, and direct graduate plus loans. Would I have to consolidate any of these loans so that they count towards PSLF?" Tim Baker, we say it depends often on this show. And I think with student loans, that's probably even more true than other things. And now in the time that we're in, there's even more unknowns and variables around the student loan situation. So thoughts on Alex's question?
Yeah, so I think Alex, again, not advice, but like if I were graduating today and I had not done my residency, I think that probably would have been the time to consolidate. And you're really just doing that from a convenience perspective. So instead of having the direct unsubsidized, direct subsidized, the direct grad, you basically have like a consolidation unsub and consolidation subsidized. And really, it would basically be, most pharmacists, they have a long list of student loans like on their balance sheet. So we would basically be consolidating that down to essentially two loans. And back in the day, you would do that really to get out of like the FFEL loans, the FEL loans, which were not eligible for PSLF, to get them into the direct program, which are, or because it's just more convenient to look at them as like one, because you're not really changing. It's just an average weighted interest rate of what you have. So it doesn't really change the economics. It's just to kind of solve the square peg FEL loans to the round hole direct loans. So the problem with the consolidation is that it typically resets the clock on what counts towards PSLF. So it could be very well be that with your direct loans that you have, that you already have, if you're finishing a PGY1, you already have 12-ish payments that qualify for PSLF by not doing anything at all, not making a payment, because we're still in the pause. So there's so much left to kind of figure out with where we're going with the student loan program and PSLF. I would probably sit on my hands right now, because I think even if you did consolidate them today, I still think that you would get credit, but it's still like a little bit of an if. So the October 31st deadline for the temporary program that the Biden administration, like what they did was they look back and they say, if you had any type of like public loans, they would count, even if it was late, a partial payment, if it was a FEL loan, direct, it didn't matter. It was a kind of a free for all, but they wanted you to apply for that program before the October 31st deadline. So this was the limited PSLF waiver. Now we're beyond that waiver. So what's essentially happening now is the Biden administration put forward the forgiveness that they wanted to forgive $20,000. Now that's being stalled by the courts. And even though the Biden administration has emailed borrowers that this has happened, it's still not a slam dunk. So the mindset out there now, or the temperature, is that the forgiveness could fall through, but the pause could be extended. And I think what the other thing that they're looking to do is create a new income-driven plan that is more generous to the buyer, which means like a lower monthly amount based on income, and that's also subsidized, similar to like the repayment, payment plan. That the interest that is accruing in the unsubsidized loans is actually more generous in terms of the subsidy. So That's all still to be determined. But the other thing they want to do is that limited waiver, they kind of want to extend those as like permanent changes. So the U.S. Department of Ed, I think it was within this last week. What they want to make those exceptions to the FEL, exceptions to the late payment, partial payments, as all counting towards the PSLF program in the future. So if they can't get the actual dollar amount across the finish line, they want to make sure that at least some of those hoops that you had to jump through, the T's you had to cross, the I's that you had to dot as a borrower, which were super vague and not very well laid out, that they're kind of erring on the side of this is what you meant to do, right? Like you want to make this full payment to get your 120 payments. So that is a long answer to say, yeah, it depends. Like I would be sitting on my hands right now if I'm you. I wouldn't necessarily do anything and just allow like the first shoe to drop with the government and where they're going to go. Would it be great to get the $20,000? Of course, for a lot of our listeners out there, that's the drop in the bucket, but every little bit counts.
Yes.
I think for me, if I'm in this PSLF program, I really want kind of a lower monthly payment with more kind of subsidies around that than the 20,000. Because if you're going to forget, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the $20,000 would be for that person that's like that has direct loans that's not going for PSLF. Which apologies for those people out there that are listening that are shaking their fist because of the court system kind of blocking this, but in this case, I probably would just wait for that shoe to drop and then go from there.
Yeah, hot mess, Tim, I think is the best word I can describe for this right now. And, we've obviously been through, dating back to the pandemic, we've been through multiple extensions of the pause. Then this fall, we've got the news from the Biden administration on what you outlined, their plan around debt cancellation up to $20,000 for certain borrowers that meet income thresholds, certain types of loans.
Right.
And then obviously a new income-driven repayment plan as well. And now here it is held up in court in terms of the debt cancellation, and it's a little bit of chicken and the egg, but I think what we're waiting for. You mentioned obviously this court decision of whether or not it's going to get blocked, or perhaps this even goes up to a higher court. I would anticipate the Biden administration is going to then look at what strings they can pull that aren't necessarily going to be legally challenged if that were to get blocked, and so those are going to, of course, have impact on our listeners as well. And so I would encourage folks, if you're not already, bookmarking studentaid.gov, I would do that. If you go on there right now, at the headline of studentaid.gov, it says student loan debt relief is blocked. Courts have issued orders blocking our student debt relief program. As a result, at this time, we're not accepting applications. We're seeking to overturn those orders. If you've already applied, we'll hold your application, and then subscribe and check back here for updates. So great place. Make sure you get the most up-to-date information. But, it's interesting timing. So we're recording this, just prior to Thanksgiving. We're supposed to see this pause lifted in January, right? So just a little over a month away from that. And depending on how fast this does or does not move the courts, obviously that's going to have implications on perhaps what happens with the pause. So I don't know, Tim, it just feels like there's a lot of moving pieces right now.
Yeah. And I think, again, I think this is, another instance where like getting some help here is going to be really important. So obviously with the clients that we work on, a comprehensive financial plan, we're keeping our finger on the pulse in terms of like where this is going. Again, a lot of advisors don't necessarily advise on student loans. So, that kind of makes us different. But I think even doing a one-time student loan analysis as kind of the chips fall here to kind of be able to react to what's going on. It's such a big decision. And, the strategy, if you have $160,000 and if you look at the different payment strategies in front of you, the delta between one strategy in terms of dollars of total amount paid and monthly amounts, the dollars between, the most generous to like, hey, you're going to be paying 360,000 on 106, like it's the delta is huge. So when we're talking about, comprehensive financial planning and building wealth and growing your net worth, this is a major thing that you really have to be educated on and make good decisions. And the goalposts are shifting here. So it makes that even harder, I think, to kind of figure out what's the best route to do. And this is a question that I think highlights that point. So, obviously we're biased, but I think get help, get a student loan analysis, work with a financial planner that focuses on these things, because, it's that important to your overall financial, health and well-being.
Yeah, to Tim's point, for folks that want to learn more about the YFP student loan analysis, you can go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/SLA. We'll link to that in the show notes. Again, yourfinancialpharmacist.com/SLA. And schedule time to work with one of our lead planners, Kelly Reddy Hefner, who, in addition to having her CFP, is also a CSLP, Certified Student Loan Professional. But more important than that is many, many, many reps working with pharmacists that are clients and helping them with their student loans. So pharmacy plus student loans, we're really in the position to best help for those that are wanting to make sure they're optimizing that strategy. Really appreciate the question that came forward this week from Alex in the YFP Facebook group. If you're not yet a part of that Facebook group, I hope you'll join that community of over 8,000 pharmacy professionals across the country. Thanks again for listening to the episode for this week. And we're going to be sending Alex a super comfy YFP t-shirt as a small thank you for his contribution to the Facebook group. And if you have a question, you can submit your question by sending us an email, info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com, or you can also record your question by going to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask-YFP. As we wrap up this week's episode, an important reminder that the content in this show is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. For more information on that, you can visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your week.